Guys, so welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to share tips and tricks that I learned along the way through my photography journey. Tip number one. Tip number one would have to be knowing your camera. So I have a Canon Rebel T6 that I use on a regular basis. And when I first got it, I was a complete newbie when I started photography. So I literally didn't know the difference between any of the settings. I only knew, okay, well, hey, this is the auto mode, so let's use that. And I didn't improve my photography until I really tried to figure out what I was doing. So definitely go through your camera, go through the user guide, go through everything, and just really focus in on different things that you didn't know about it and how you can use it to your best advantage in every situation. So tip number two kind of goes along with tip number one, and that would be to know the difference between aperture, the shutter speed, and ISO. I had no idea what those things meant. I had no idea how huge of a deal that is in photography. I mean, it's a huge deal. It's everything really. So when I took a class, and I also watched several YouTube videos on exactly what these things are and how to manipulate them in order to get the result that you're looking for. So that helped me so hugely, especially knowing aperture. Aperture allows you to control what you want to be in focus and what you want to be out of focus. So if you're taking, say, like landscape photography, you want your aperture to be a lot higher because you want everything to be in focus. But if you're doing portrait photography, which is something that I prefer, I like my aperture to be really low. And the aperture that I love is like 1.8 to those kinds of things. It does that whole, like, it focuses on the subject and then everything else is just kind of the background. So it doesn't distract from the subject anymore. So I love, love, love changing of my aperture and then really adjusting my other settings around it. That's just personally how I do photography. If you do a different type of photography, it totally changes how you use your camera. Okay, so tip number three would be bring your camera everywhere. Absolutely everywhere that you can take your camera, take it with you, because you never know when there's going to be a great opportunity, when there's going to be like the perfect photo and you don't have your camera. Now, they always say the best camera that you have is the one that you always take with you. So if you can't take, Oscar, what are you doing? If you can't take your DSLR everywhere, chances are you have your phone. And iPhones today take amazing photos. So just take a camera with you everywhere so that you can really practice and figure out what you want to do. Tip number four would be to take photos of friends, take photos of family, get comfortable with telling people how to pose, where you want them. All of that stuff is so much easier to do with friends and family than with strangers. And obviously, if you continue and pursue photography as an actual career, then you're going to be doing it with strangers all the time. So you want to know what you're doing and you want to know what to tell them to do. So tip number five would be to not expect to make money right off the bat. Now, you think going into photography, oh, photography, it's a lucrative business, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yes, it can be, but in order to get to the level of pros and professionals, you need to build your portfolio. So you need to be able to take photos and show off your work, because no one's going to pay somebody if they don't see examples and photos of their work and what they can do. Because obviously, if you want to pay someone to take portraits for you and you don't see anything that they've done in the past, why would you pick them over everyone else? So just at least at the beginning, don't charge anything. And then once you start getting a portfolio, people start seeing things, then start charging things. But again, don't just jump right into the full prices. Like, make sure that when you start charging, then it's very competitive so that it increases your clientele. And then once you have a really good client base, that's when you can really start charging actual prices that people pay for photographers. Tip number six, practice your editing often, like all the time. Like, I have apps on my phone I use for editing, but I mostly use Lightroom and I'll use Photoshop every now and then. Now, you don't have to actually buy the programs in order to use them. Like, you can be a part of the Adobe membership. That's what I do. It's like $10 or $15 a month, and it allows you to have access to Lightroom, Photoshop, any kind of Adobe product you're able to use, and it saves you so much money doing it that way. I mean, at least in the beginning, you know, you're not thinking, oh, I'm gonna throw all of this money into a application I don't even know how to use. Now, that's another thing. When you are editing, you need to make sure you know what you're doing. And when you're editing, try, especially for photo shoots, try to keep everything as far as color and everything goes fairly similar, because you don't want to have two pictures next to each other that are great photos and they could be great standing alone, but when you put them together, they don't mesh because the editing is so completely different on either side. So try to pick like a style for each shoot that you do. Tip number 7, that would be learning from others. Use every opportunity you can to learn, because as a photographer, everyone is always learning. So if you can, follow other photographers, shadow them, especially if you're doing big event photography. You don't want to just jump head on into like wedding photography without at least shadowing somebody first, so you get an idea as to what the best way to do things is, how to make sure you get every shot that you want, how to make sure you get every shot that your clientele wants, everything like that. So yeah, just make sure that you are learning from others as much as possible. I mean, you can utilize things like YouTube. That's what I did. I utilized YouTube all the time when I was learning. I mean, I'm still learning today. I still use YouTube videos. I mean, but a lot of my tips and tricks I got from YouTube. So use that to your advantage. You have so much out there now that you can learn from without even having to pay for it. Tip number 8, that would be to find your niche or whatever you're doing and you love doing and stick with it. That will give you way more opportunity to expand the portfolio in the ways that you want to show off. So if you love portraiture, take lots of photos and portraits. Take lots of portraits and really expand your knowledge on that and grow so that your photos keep getting better and better. And then the ones that you display on your portfolio will be exactly what you want to showcase and what you want to continue doing. So if that's something you love, then do that. If you love taking landscape photography, do that. But find something, yes, everyone can take photos of everything as well, but find something that you love and really go for that so that you have a thing that you enjoy, that you are constantly expanding and getting better at. So tip number 9 would be lighting. Lighting is so important and can completely change the atmosphere, the attitude, like aesthetic that you want to show from the photo. So especially if you're into, like I said, portraits and you're into outdoor portraits, time of day is so crucial. So what I like to do is I like to do it either earlier in the morning when the sun is rising or later in the evening when the sun is setting. I don't like to do photography in the middle of the day. If you do it in the middle of the day, the sun is all the way up in the sky, it's shining down on people and it's causing all these shadows. You can definitely do it, but then it requires a lot more maneuvering around and finding areas that have shade so that you can have shade over the people and they're not all squinting and they don't have tons of shadows all over their faces, because that's not what you want for photos. And then tip number 10 is really just have fun. Make sure that whatever you're doing it for the reason that you love it. Yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, it's going to be difficult and challenging sometimes, but that's how everything is. You have to treat it like you love it, but also treat it like a job. So when you get frustrated, just pick yourself up, remember why you were doing it, even go take photos of something completely stress-free, something that just you're able to really creatively express yourself, and go for that. Just make sure you're always having fun. So anyways, those are my top 10 tips that I wanted to share with you all about beginning photography. It can be a really broad topic to explore and jump into. And especially on YouTube now, I just love how you can just really get so much knowledge without even having to go to a class. You don't have to go into a classroom setting. You don't have to pay for things. Like, there's so much knowledge and like all of this advice everywhere now. So I just wanted to share that. Make sure that you subscribe down below if you like this kind of stuff. I post every single Wednesday. I like to post things about photography, beauty, all of that good stuff. So anything that you also want to hear from me, feel free to comment down below. And I look forward to seeing you guys again. Bye.